rights.
What we're hearing around here at Magic 102.7 FM, and indeed as we go about the community, that there are some grassroots people, grassroots supporters of the Progressive Labor Party, traditional labor, blue-collar industries, that are feeling as if the party itself, meaning the Progressive Labor Party, and by extension the government, is moving away from those key components of what made them the PLP.
I think that you always hear some disgruntlement. That goes with the territory. But I think that when people look at the PLP, what they see in the PLP is the fact that we stay close to the community. Even this morning, even this yesterday evening, standing room only. This morning being out there, all of us at 7 to 9 or 7 to 8 for some, but certainly out there just waving, and people, not everybody was excited to see us, but most did. The party, in terms of its policies, has set out to work with the unions, to work for the people, and to also in our employment policies and in our labor policies to make sure there is the connect. Part of what you asked about earlier, even in terms of the investment in people, the reliefs, are to make sure that we keep people working, and not because we create jobs, but we certainly have to provide that enabling environment. That's why you would have heard Minister Miners said that when she was Minister for Business Development and Tourism, she regularly met with the union. She meets with them even now, obviously in her role as Labor Minister. Our connections are clear, and it goes across ministry. The fact that we are making sure that we are keeping the people, and a people first policies making is what really guides us as we sit around the table. How do the people benefit? Okay, you're doing this, that, and the other, but what does it mean to Mr. and Mrs. Bermuda? And that's how we approach things from a policy perspective. Even when you talk about such esoteric and theoretical and technical things like tax information exchange agreements, yes, you can tell me I've signed 38, doesn't matter. But what does it mean? Yes, it means that we're growing the economy. Yes, it means that we're growing networks internationally. But how does this affect Mr. and Mrs. Bermuda? Yes, they'll benefit, because if you grow business and if you grow, people want to interact in terms of and set up companies in Bermuda, then there has a benefit. But as I said last night, even with recently, there's been an agreement that I received just, I guess, Sunday. I received it from Qatar because they want to have an air transport agreement. I am obviously required to pass it on to the FCO through the government house. But what do they want to do? They want to have an airline that comes to Bermuda so that they can have more of an input and volume of business where they to invest in infrastructure here or hotels here. And there are people coming to stay here. They see that it makes a difference if they have an airline and air transport. So what we're doing is looking at things from a point of view of, does it make sense economically, but also more importantly, how does it benefit Mr. and Mrs. Bermuda?
For those of you who are just tuning in, I have with me this morning Madam Premier Paula Cox. She is talking about a wide range of issues. Of course, the big topic of the day, the election has been called. That is December the 17th, 2012. Family, the lines are open at 296-2442 if you want to call in with a question or comment. Also, you can email Sherry, that's SHERRI.magic@gmail.com. Madam Premier, I'm just going to go to the Facebook page now and just read off a couple of questions from the Facebook page. This is coming from Stratton GW Hatfield. Can you ask why the election was called for a date when many young Bermudians will be abroad completing their exams in university or college? Of course, that was addressed early on in the interview, but if you just, for those of you who may have missed that, just if you can briefly recap that for us.
The date was chosen with a view to being able to include as many young people who are in college and university. And that date I did a number of checks, both in terms of using formal sources and informal sources. And in fact, the sources would have suggested that the 14th would have been certainly a reasonable and and realistic date, but just so that you can cover any spillover, because some may be packing up and wanting to come over the weekend. The 17th was thought to be the best time. And certainly also you don't want to get right on the eve of Christmas Eve. I think really all you do is that it's an irritant. So what you're always going to have some people who may be excluded, but at the same time the intent was to include. If one wanted to exclude students, one would have gone much far earlier in December.
Alrighty, this next question is from Alex Jones. I'd like to know why and when the government implemented $130 million of austerity budget cuts for 2011-2012. She tried to mislead the public by being about investment, not austerity.
The budget, in fact, if you get the budget book for 2011-12 as well as 2012-13, you'll see that there was a significant reduction in terms of the spending, and where the spending came was in certainly a number of areas, and we've itemized them. But there's no question of misleading. We're transparent as it can be. In fact, what I did was probably not meet my own self-imposed goal, which was $150 million, and I couldn't. I think it would have required a massive personnel loss, and I had to recognize that that wasn't the most wise or appropriate decision at that time.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit about that massive personnel loss. One of the criticisms of successive Progressive Labor Party administrations is how the civil service has grown. Many people from quarters, indeed, it's been suggested from members of the OBA and indeed, outside of the OBA as well, that the civil service needs to be cut.
I think that you've had a flip-flop from the OBA. I think at one stage they were saying it to be cut, and then they realized for them that was not politically tenable, so they said attrition. And what the government has sought to do really is to, one, make some efficiencies in terms of certainly temporary, also not extending beyond retirement unless the services were required, and also we've trimmed in terms of consultancies and other areas. And the government also is in the process of having efficiency reviews. I committed to do that, and we're looking at how some of the areas where we have probably overstaffed, as people are retiring, we're not necessarily filling those positions. But at the same time, we also recognize that in terms of some of the key core service delivery areas, whether it's the police service, whether it's education and educators, that in terms of trying to ensure we do have, one, effective law enforcement as well as an effective and a world-class public education system, you trim people at the expense of the core service delivery. And so you have to decide where the balance should be struck. And the balance is normally would come down in favor of proper service delivery, particularly in those core areas.
One of the criticisms of late about service delivery is that the quality of the service here in Bermuda, the roads, the ferries, the buses, etc., people have been referring to it as a third world country or third world existence, that under the Progressive Labor Party, you've seen a steady deterioration of those sort of, our roads and those sort of services.
I don't think that anybody would credibly assert that we have third world roads or anything of that nature. But let's be real. And being real, let's not be schizophrenic about spending and also efficiencies. If there is a cost that is assigned to roadworks, then the minister properly will say that we'll only do X amount on an annual basis, because anything else would be seen as extravagant, or in terms of an area where you're looking at how to do more with less, where would those resources best be delivered and allocated. So you are having to balance. You can't expect to have everything and not think it comes with a price. And since you want to live within your means, it means that there are going to have to be some choices made. It's as simple as that.